Well, one of my next guests, Fox News contributor Deroy Murdock, just challenged those comments from the former president in a brilliant op-ed titled, quote, "Beyond Angry White Men." Deroy wrote, "Trump won by appealing to all races, genders, and education levels." And Deroy joins us now, along with Trump Transition Team Executive Committee member Rev Darrell Scott and Fox News contributor Doug Schoen. Now, this is what I call an A-team lineup. So, guys, thanks so much for being here with me tonight.
Sure.
Let's talk about this. This is really unbelievable. The juxtaposition of the messaging of President-elect Donald Trump and now the reaction and the pettiness, it seems, of President Bill Clinton.
No, absolutely. And I think the whole idea here is to delegitimize Trump's victory, basically to paint it as the result of a white supremacist campaign, and therefore let's shut down his entire agenda. And the fact is, Trump won 62% of white male votes. If those are the only people voting, you could say, okay, well, it really was a white male victory. But he needed other people to get to a victory, which is what he won. He did this by winning one-third, almost 1 out of 3 Hispanic men, by winning 8% of the black vote. That's 2% higher than Mitt Romney, by winning 52% of white women. And so there are a lot more people involved in this Trump victory, this victory coalition, than just white men, which is what people like Bill Clinton would like to have you believe.
Yeah, well, Reverend Scott, always a pleasure to see you. I know we'll be together hosting a diversity event coming up at the inauguration. But what do you make of this? Why is it this pigeonholing, trying to paint this divisive rhetoric and put this on President-elect Donald Trump?
Well, you know, Americans were angry, but it wasn't just white Americans. White, black, Latino, Asian, all Americans were angry, and that anger showed up at the polls because we were dissatisfied with the prior administration. I mean, Michael Cohen, Executive Vice President and Special Counsel to Donald Trump, my very best friend, Michael Cohen, and I formed the National Diversity Coalition, and we have every ethnic group you can imagine that's a part of that coalition that are passionate in their support for Mr. Donald Trump. And we all came together as Americans. You know, the other campaign is trying to once again divide us, but we came together as Americans, united with the common cause. Let's get this candidate elected so we can make America great again.
Yeah, for all the communities and rebuild the infrastructure in communities that have been suffering under a liberal reign and Democratic mayors. When you look at places like Chicago, etc., I think it was a compelling message, Reverend, when President-elect Trump went out there and said, you know, what do you have to lose? And it seems those communities did, in fact, respond. Doug, great to see you. So what are we going to do about the Clintons? When are they going to ever accept responsibility?
Look, I clearly, Kimberly, this was a mistake by President Clinton, and it's ironic because I was involved in an integral way in 1996, and our sole focus in that campaign was on the angry white men who Bill Clinton now said were the core of Donald Trump's constituency. Look, Bill Clinton unified the country. He and Secretary Clinton are recovering from a painful loss. But I do join with the Reverend and with my friend Deroy to say we've got to unify this country. What Donald Trump said is right. He's got relatively low approval ratings now because of a divisive campaign. We've got to be together to be able to do what Colonel Peters said, which is to take on the Russians and to fight the fight for America as a unified nation.
You know, Doug, what would your advice be to President-elect Donald Trump about how he can go about doing this and accomplishing this task of unifying the country?
Well, first, he's got to continue to talk the way he is. Second, we need legislation like the initiative for the infrastructure, which can bring in Democratic votes. We need bipartisan tax reform, bipartisan regulation reduction. We need an inclusive president who also helps the inner city, helps African Americans and Hispanics. And if Donald Trump follows the good advice of the Reverend, I think he'll be a long way to promoting and building a true diverse constituency.
All right, most certainly. All right, Reverend, thank you for being here tonight. Doug and Deroy, always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Coming up next, right here on Hannity.